Hey everybody, welcome back for the second half of this video. If you are just joining me for the first time, we'll make note that the other half of this video is in a different video here on YouTube. And so if you want to see kind of the intro and some cool screwdrivers, you might go watch that video. There will be a link to that here at the end of this video, and you can just click on that too in order to see that first half. You don't have to go back and watch that first. There's no progression from one to the other, but yeah, you probably want to see both of them. I will mention again that if you find any of these tools to be useful and wish to acquire them for yourself, please use the links that are popping out throughout the course of this video and are available in the description of both videos. And that really does help the channel out quite a lot through the affiliate program that Amazon has to offer. So very much appreciated that you'll do that. So with that said, let's join the video already in progress. When it comes to working with wires, it's really nice to have tools that are appropriate for that. And I've got a handful of some of the options that are there. So a couple different cutters. So and these are both diagonal cutters. And these are both, let's see, well, this one's on my left hand is from Tecton. And this one on my right is from Knipex. The Knipex brand is about as good as you can get, and I'm investing in a lot more of their tools recently than I ever have in the past. And you also see that this wire stripper I have here is also a Knipex as well. They're just super well made. They do a great job. They're made of high quality steel, and so the blades don't tend to dull very quickly and tend to work really well for long periods of time. I'm not going to be throwing these things out because they've gotten dull on you like you might from a cheap brand that you've gotten somewhere. It's also kind of important to have a decent wire stripper. This one is from Klein Tools, which is one of the better manufacturers here in the US, and a German name ironically. To have one that actually has specific sizes for the different sizes of wire that you might be working with. If you are working with these, you want to make note, though, that there are two different sizes listed on most of these things. In this case, it has the size for solid wire on the left and the size for stranded wire on the right. So just make sure you're paying attention to that, because if you get it wrong, you're either not going to strip up enough of the jacket off, or you're going to dig into the conductor when you go to strip the wire and do damage to it. So super nice to have some high quality tools that just make your job a lot easier and actually help to prevent injury, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So anyway, just a handful of tools there for working with wires. All right, take a look at some various types of pliers here. So we're all familiar with these locking channel style wrenches. I guess that's probably the safest way to say that. This is one that you can use to grab onto nuts. So these tend to mar surfaces quite a bit, so it's more of a last resort than using the proper size wrench. But they can be super handy. The big downside to these is like when they close, the angle changes. So if you need to grab something, have it be flat on both surfaces, you have to really be careful about which size you choose. And very often you can't actually find a size where the two jaws will come in parallel to the nut or bolt or whatever you're grabbing onto, and that's just going to reduce the amount of force that you can transmit to whatever you're working with. And so that's where these other things here come into play. So these look like the channel style locking pliers, but these are what they call pliers wrenches, and these are made by Knipex again. I think I've seen these from other brands as well, but Knipex clearly makes some of the best ones that are out there. So in this one, you use the slide to get into the rough location of the size that you need, and then as you open and close, the jaws actually do stay parallel. So when you go to grab onto a nut or bolt or whatever, you're getting the best possible hold that you can. The downside is that they don't have as much of a range of motion as the jaws style here, but again, super handy, and I find myself using these a lot more than using some of these older channel style that are available. So again, Knipex is going to be one of the best brands you can get for these. They're a little spendy. These are $60, $70, $80 a pair, but I found that they are absolutely worth it. And so if you're having to work with nuts and bolts and things like that of any size, these are super handy and super versatile. Instead of having to carry an entire set of wrenches, you can actually use something like this to cover a fairly wide range of different sizes. So anyway, great tools. All right, take a little bit of a detour compared to some of the other tools that I've shown you. So this is not so much of a hand tool, but having a good quality flashlight can make a difference between being able to see in dark environments and not. And this is one of those markets that's been flooded by a lot of junk. There's a lot of very inexpensive flashlights that are out there that make wild claims about how much light they deliver that are just absolutely not real. And it's really hard to find something that's actually high quality. And finally, I did stumble across one brand. They're not going to be the only one, but this is made by Imalent, Imalent, and these things are phenomenal. It's very, very rugged, but this one is insanely bright. I'm not going to flash the camera because I don't want to do damage to my sensors, but this one has a mode where super high power for 45 seconds. It's insanely bright. It'll light up quite a large area, and yet it's very small. It's in my hand, and you can select different brightnesses by holding the button. So, let's see. There you go. You won't be able to tell necessarily on camera how bright that is, but it's insanely bright, and it's quite a great flashlight. It's actually so bright. One day I had it in my pocket and I accidentally turned it on, and it burned me. It actually burned my leg and it melted my jeans. It was producing so much light and heat that it actually melted a hole in my jeans and did burn my leg. So anyway, great flashlight. They are a little bit expensive, but I absolutely firmly believe that it's worth it. And if you're looking for a high quality flashlight, you don't need to look any farther than this Imalent brand. And they are great and absolutely worth the money that you pay for one. All right, show you a couple tools here that I use when I first go on site, whenever I'm on location with working on a video job. So I always carry an outlet tester with me, and that has actually come in very handy. Make sure that the outlets that I'm going to be plugging into actually have power, also that they're wired correctly. I've had some situations where there could have been some real problems had we not tested ahead of time. I had a situation a few months ago where we were working in a hotel, and somebody at some point had wired one of the outlets incorrectly. Instead of being 120 volts, it was 240. It wasn't me that plugged into it, but the person that did fried a power strip because of all that extra voltage. Had we had an outlet tester, we would have known ahead of time, and they would have saved themselves $50 on that power strip that they had gotten. But anyway, super handy to have those. So this one in particular shows you the voltage on the screen, in addition to showing you if it's wired correctly or not. So this is a little more intelligent than some of those cheap ones that have the 2 orange lights and then 1 red light on the bottom. This actually has a green light to let you know everything's okay, or a red light to let you know that something is wrong. Again, as mentioned, it shows the voltage on the screen there. It also will test GFCI outlets. And so if you need to make sure that your GFCI is working properly, you're able to do that with that one as well. The other one I want to take a look at here, and this isn't necessarily the specific model that I would recommend, but this is a laser distance measurer thing. So you're able to measure distance. For example, I'll turn this on here and then press it, and it'll come back and tell me that it is just over 4 feet from here to the wall that's in front of me. And this works over fairly long distances. I've had it work at well over 100 feet, 30 meters. These are great for when you're trying to figure out how large a room is, or if you need to figure out how much cable you're going to need, power cable or signal cable or whatever. Just grab this thing, take it in the room, aim it, press the button, and it'll give you the distance measurement. That way you know what length of cable you need to bring in or grab or whatever when you're setting up. So super, super handy. These can also calculate area and volume if you ever need to do that. And they do have the capability of measuring, say, for example, if I need to know the length of a wall that's opposite of where I'm at, if you're able to guesstimate the angle, it will be able to calculate roughly what the distance is between 2 points that are distant from you. So a lot of very handy uses for this thing, and one that I try to remember to bring with me on every site walkthrough because it can just be so incredibly handy. The other thing is it records the measurements on screen, so you're able to take those, log them, record them, make note of them somewhere else. So super handy, super great tools to have. There's another one of those tools that I don't necessarily have a specific model or brand that I wanted to recommend, but having kind of a general purpose multi-tool like this comes in very handy. There we go. So, you got your pliers, you got your needle nose pliers, you got your wire cutter, you've got a little bit serrated edge there in order to really grip things. There's knives and things like that in here, and so there's a knife, and then you've got a file and a bunch of other things. These are great because it's kind of an all-in-one. You're able to throw this on your belt, just have it with you as you're doing your everyday normal thing, walking around. And couldn't tell you how many times something like this has come in handy when I'm trying to set up, and I don't have 10 screwdriver that I need or whatever, or pull something out of a tool like this, just go ahead and use it. So this one's from a brand called Gerber. There's great tools, but Leatherman is also another very common one that are very well made as well. So if you don't have something like this, probably something that you should add to your arsenal and just kind of throw it on your belt. I've had this one for 25 years or more at this point, and it's still just as good as brand new. Okay, having a drill and or impact driver can really be a game changer when you're working on location for a lot of different reasons, obviously. I wanted to call up specific attention to this one. Anybody who watches this channel know I have a lot of DeWalt tools. This one I think is very, very cool. So normally I use their 20 volt line, but I saw this one. This is part of their 12 volt line, and this thing is awesome. So, and the reason I say that is because it has an interchangeable end here. You can do a bunch of different things. So obviously this one right here is going to be the impact driver. Got the screwdriver bit in there at the moment, but I can pull that off. There is a hex in there if you want to use that. But the beauty of this tool is that you can actually swap in other different ends as well. So here's one that's actually for using with drill bits. So it can be a little bit fiddly to get on. There we go. There we go. So now it's not an impact driver anymore. It's now a drill, and I'm able to swap that out there fairly easily. Also other options here as well. So I can pull that off. So this one right here allows you to, it's sort of the impact driver, but it allows you to work much closer to a surface. So let me rotate that here and get that a little straighter on. There we go. All right, so if you need to be able to screw something in close to a surface, like you're working up at the ceiling or against a wall or whatever, you've got that offset on there. You can see that a little better at that angle. There we go. So you've got that one, and then it also has a right angle. So if you really need to do something weird, again, these can be a little bit fiddly to get on there. There we go. So now you've got a right angle, and then you can take one of these other tools in there. So you need to do something really weird. There you go. So now you can really get into a really strange angle with something like that. But that also, of course, works with the drill end as well. So if you ever need to drill a hole around a corner, that kind of tool will actually let you do that. But I really like this because it's really not much more expensive than just getting an impact driver, especially by the time you factor in the battery and everything. Kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to screwing and drilling. I've been really impressed by this tool. Super glad that I bought it, and it's one that I would recommend, particularly because it gives you a lot of functionality in a single tool, far less than buying the individual tools separately. So, great tool. All right, this is a set of tools that I've actually talked about here on this channel in depth in the past, but I want to bring it up again because it's been quite a while, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who watch now that never saw that original video. But for those of us who work in video, it can very often be super handy and pay off to be able to make and repair our own, in this case, video cables. And so I've got these particular tools here. So very often I use a Belden 1505A or Belden 1694 cable for video. I have my own tools here in order to terminate or put the ends on. The ends that I happen to use are from Canary, and again, these are the proper tools for doing this. So this particular crimper here is designed for the 1694, and there's one other size. I think that's probably the 1855, which I also use quite a lot as well. And then I have this other one. This is kind of a generic one with a Greenlee punch, I believe, or die set. And I use this for the 1505. They are a little bit spendy, but again, will pay for itself in the long term. If you're going to be working with coax and need to cut it, you should probably invest in a cutter that actually has the curved blades. That helps to reduce the amount of damage that's done to the dielectric insulator that's in there. So the other part of this is of having a proper stripper for the cables, because the strip distance for different connectors does vary, and the distance, the size of the conductor and the dielectric varies from one to another. So you really need to have a stripper that is designed for the type of end and type of cable you're using. So this one from Canary, this is the TS100U. This one is set up for Canary's L-2.5 CHD. It's also got L4 SCHD plus, and then you get into the Belden cables, so 1855A, 1505A, and 1694A. So those are kind of some of the most common cables that are used for video. So for this, you insert the cable in there, close this up, spin it around 10 times, and then pull the cable out, and it will be stripped properly, all the right distances, the right depths, etc. And you're able to put the connectors on super easily. So having the right tools makes all this really easy to do. Anybody can do it, and it can save you so much money compared to buying cables from somebody else. The other situation where this comes in super handy is repairing cables. So if a cable happens to get damaged, you can cut it right there on location, put new ends on it, turn it into two good cables if the break is somewhere in the middle, or replace an end when it happens to go bad. So you're able to salvage cables that you might have had to throw away otherwise. So anyway, that's super handy to have, and absolutely worth it in the long term if you are working with video cables very much at all. Having a good quality knife can make all the difference in the world, and I'm not necessarily recommending this Milwaukee one, but this is kind of one of those standard utility blades, useful for a lot of different things. I would say that I actually prefer this style, this snap blade style, and you can get these in all sorts of different sizes. This is one of my favorites. This is from a brand called Olfa. I believe that's another European brand. You Europeans seem to know more about making tools than we do here in the USA. But anyway, so this is super handy for cutting all sorts of different things, and when one of the segments of the blade gets dull or chipped, just break it off and start using a new one. So super handy and super cheap. If you need a good quality knife, this is one that I would look at. All right, I wanted to get a little bit into a few electronic gadgets, electronic tools that are super useful for a lot of different situations that I encounter when I'm doing video production. I'm not really going to demonstrate these fully, but I'll start with this one over here. This is actually a USB cable tester, and this one, you got all your different connectors. So your USB-B, you've got your USB-C, the USB micro, there's Lightning, and USB micro B, and then two different USB-A over here and another USB-C. And when you plug it in, the lights will light up on here, basically telling you which wires are actually still working, and it also lets you know the capabilities of the cable, because especially when you move to USB-C, you can find a lot of situations where the cable doesn't have all the lines that you're expecting it to, which means that it may not work for data, or it may not work at high speed for data. So if you're ever in doubt, you can pick up one of these things, plug the cable in both sides here. It will light up and show you which lines are actually wired and working. I have another tester for USB that I didn't bring down today, but I will be doing a separate video about here in a little while. It actually queries the chip that's a part of newer cables to let you know what their capabilities are. For example, how much power it will actually carry if you need to charge a device, because then in this day and age, a lot of times chargers will not deliver the power that the device requests if the cable doesn't basically let the charger know it's safe for me to carry this much power through the cable. So especially when you get into high power, like 140, 200, 240 watts, you have to have cables that are certified for that, and they'll have an embedded chip, and there are testers you can get to let you know. This one will not tell you that, but this will let you know if you've got a cable that has a broken wire in it. So these are super handy to have and pretty inexpensive. The other one that I've got here is not something that's going to appeal to everybody, but this is a thermal camera. So power the thing on here, and so I'm able to use this to determine what temperatures things are nearby. It's just warming up. I'll flip it around and kind of let you see what I look like on a thermal camera. Yeah, super handy for reading temperatures, which you may think is a little bit of a novelty when it comes to troubleshooting what's going on with electronics and whatnot. But if you've got a piece of equipment that's overheating, well, you can't tell visually, but you can certainly tell on a thermal camera. And I have actually solved a fair number of problems with something like this, and it has been really super handy to have. I haven't used it a ton on site with video productions, but I very often do throw it in my backpack just in case, and allows you to see sometimes at a distance when something is not acting right and is running at temperatures that are a little bit too high than they should be. So anyway, again, not something I'd recommend for everybody, but it has been handy for me in a lot of different situations. Okay, so next I want to demonstrate. This is another piece of electronics. This is a multi-tester / oscilloscope built into one. I don't necessarily have a single brand of these that I recommend, but this lets you test not only voltage and resistance and voltage drop for things like diodes and whatnot, but it also has an oscilloscope in there, so you're able to see what a given waveform looks like. I know that's kind of advanced, but there are a lot of situations when we're working with audio and video where it might be handy to see what's going on on with a particular signal. This one's not going to be fast enough to let you see, for example, what an SDI signal looks like, but it's certainly going to be useful for audio, and you'll be able to read audio, see an audio signal with this very, very easily. Again, voltage is something that you can take advantage of, making sure the receptacle in a building is what it's supposed to be, or you've got a power supply for a device. It's supposed to be putting out 5 or 12 volts or whatever, and you're not sure, you can always grab this and put the leads on the end and test to make sure that it is saying, or is putting out the amount of power that it's supposed to. So I like having a single device that does both instead of having to carry 2 separate devices. I think this has been super, super handy for me and has saved me in quite a few different situations. And they're not that terribly expensive. You can get these for $100-ish, thereabouts. Very handy in a lot of different ways. All right, so I'm turning that off here. And then take a look at this other thing. This is one that I've not shown on the channel before. I've been meaning to make a video about it, and I probably still will. But this one over here is for testing fiber. So this is what they call an OTDR, or optical time domain reflectometer. And I think I can probably demonstrate here. It might take me a second to prep a cable to test this. But this lets you visualize what's going on with the fiber cable from a single end. You don't have to trace the entire cable to see where it's going, how it's connected or whatever. You plug in a single end of the cable and run the OTDR analysis. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and run the OTDR. Oops. I have 2 of these. One's a touchscreen, one's not. So that's why I accidentally tested it there. So hit set, and then I'm going to go ahead and start the test on this. It's actually sending a laser down the cable and analyzing what the signal is coming back. And in this particular case, you can see on the graph there, it's showing where there are reflections and where there are losses. And by looking at this diagram, I can see that it says it at 271 feet that it's seeing a reflection. But what that actually is in this case, it's sending the light down the cable, all the way down the cable to the other end where it's bouncing off the connector that's here and then coming back to the end. So that 271 feet is, in this case, double the length of this cable. But if there was a point in the cable where it's pinched or damaged in any other kind of way, that would actually show up here on the chart. It shows you where there are any connections. So if you've got 2 or 3 cables joined together, you'll be able to see each one of those different joints. And if there is any sort of thing wrong with the cable, one of the connectors is damaged or whatever, that would actually show up on here as well. So an OTDR is a very, very handy piece of equipment to have if you happen to work with fiber much at all. And it's something that I would definitely recommend getting. There are videos here on YouTube about how to use one of these, but at some point I will take the time to make a proper video on how to use one of these devices and to read the output that it shows you once you actually run a test on the fiber. But if you happen to be someone who works with fiber very much at all, this is a piece of equipment that you probably should invest in, and it's going to save you a lot of headaches when you're trying to troubleshoot a problem. All right, so that's all that I had queued up to show you here today. But if you got some tools that you have found to be tremendously useful in doing your video and audio production work or whatever, and I didn't cover that here on this channel, please let me know down in the comment section down below. Or even better, join us over on Discord. I have a Discord server set up specifically for discussing things about video and audio production. Absolutely free to join. Great community of people there who are super supportive and super knowledgeable, super helpful. And so if you have a question, you can join us there and ask the question, and somebody will certainly answer you and help you out in any way that you might need. So again, I'll mention that I would appreciate if you happen to buy any of these things that you do happen to use the links that I've provided throughout the course of this video and in the description for this video down below. That helps the channel quite a lot. Even if you don't choose the specific models that I'm demonstrating here or link to, clicking on the link and going to that site is enough in order to get credit for a sale. So anything you buy during that session will actually provide a little bit of commission for me here on the channel. So very much appreciated. And it does help quite a lot. It helps me to bring in stuff that I can test and demonstrate and show you here on the channel. So anyway, but that's going to about do it for now. So thanks everybody for watching and have a fantastic day.